Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Truth, Lies, and Mr. Grey by Shelly Ellis. Narrated by Patryce Williams. Prologue. June 2008. Washington, D.C.
Have a seat. Can I get you anything? Whiskey? Tequila? Or are you a bourbon kind of guy?
Maxwell asked with a grin before gesturing to the bar cart laden with bottles, decanters, and glasses. Cyrus Grey slowly lowered himself into the leather armchair facing Maxwell's desk and unbuttoned his suit jacket.
Sure, I'll take a whiskey on the rocks.
As Maxwell poured his drink, Cyrus could hear the thumping of R&B music filtering through the office's walls and door. It was from the dance floor 2 stories below, where more than 500 people were currently partying the night away. Being a numbers guy, Cyrus did a quick calculation in his head of how much money Maxwell likely pulled in per night between the cover charge and bar. Inwardly, he smiled, because he knew a portion of that money would soon be his. He was to join Maxwell as co-owner of The Spot, D.C.'s premier nightclub. In fact, Cyrus was here tonight to finally sign the paperwork. Maxwell handed him his glass, then took the leather chair behind his desk.
Thanks for coming down here so late, Cy. I know not everybody's a night owl like me, bruh. No problem. I would have come here at 4 o'clock in the morning if you asked me to. You know I'm ready to get this done.
He leaned forward eagerly in his chair and glanced at a stack of binder-clipped papers on the desk.
Is that the contract?
Maxwell followed Cyrus's gaze.
No, it isn't.
He shifted in his chair. Maxwell's grin was now replaced with a grimace.
Actually, Cy, that's why I asked you to come down here tonight. We've known each other for a while now, and it didn't feel right saying something like this over the phone.
Cyrus's stomach dropped. That didn't sound good. He leaned back, bracing himself for what he was about to hear next.
Look, I thought about it,
Maxwell began,
and I don't know if it's such a good idea for us to become, business partners.
Cyrus's jaw tightened. Fury bubbled inside him, but he forced himself to keep the volcano from erupting. It wasn't always good to show your emotions. It was like showing your hand in a game of poker.
But that's what we agreed to,
Cyrus began in an even voice.
I loaned you the money to invest in your club, and you said you would grant me a portion of the ownership. You'd make me co-owner.
He'd given Maxwell more than $250,000. Cyrus hadn't made him sign a contract outright because Maxwell had given him some song and dance about how it all had to be done under the table for tax reasons. Rightly or wrongly, Cyrus hadn't given Maxwell's request a second thought. He'd gotten used to working with clients who didn't believe in contracts. Just adapt in your word. Sure, Cyrus had told his fair share of lies. He claimed he had a master's degree from Stanford when he didn't. He didn't have a master's degree at all. He claimed, as a financial consultant, that he had clients like the D.C. mayor and Redskins coach Jim Zorn, and even Hollywood celeb clients like Denzel Washington, John Legend, and Jamie Foxx. None of that was true either. Cyrus was a self-made man, creating himself from scratch, but he considered those little white lies compared to reneging on a deal. Maxwell nodded and waved his dark hand.
Yeah, I know. But like I said, I had a chance to think about it, and I'm just not good with working with other people, Cy. I'm pig-headed. I like to go my own way. Trust me, bruh. I'm doing you a favor. He chuckled. We agreed,
Cyrus said through clenched teeth. Maxwell nodded again.
I know, but it ain't like we signed anything. It was just a gentleman's agreement. And part of being a gentleman is keeping your goddamn word. Hey, Maxwell said, narrowing his eyes and pointing at him. Watch your tone. Or what? What the hell are you gonna do?
Cyrus challenged. The office fell silent. The DJ switched to another song on the dance floor below as the two men glared at each other across the office desk. Suddenly, Maxwell broke into another grin. He tossed back his head and laughed again, hearty and loud, showing almost all his teeth, infuriating Cyrus even more.
Shy, get the hell out of here, bruh. We could duke it out if you want to, but the only thing that will happen is you getting thrown out of this club and banned from ever coming back. He tilted his head. Now, I know you run with a rough crowd. Sometimes a black man has to in order to get where he needs to go. Shit, I've done it myself, but they're gangbangers, Cy. Not us. We're businessmen. We understand business. We also understand what constitutes binding agreements. We didn't sign a contract. It's your word against mine. You can come after me in court if you want. Maxwell shrugged. But you know damn well you'd lose. I'll pay you back the money with interest if it'll make you feel better. But I'm not giving you half of my club. That's it. Sorry, bruh.
Cyrus slowly rose from his chair, swallowing his pride like he was swallowing down a boulder. It took all his willpower not to leap across the desk and start pummeling Maxwell in the face. But he knew the other man was right. It would only end up with him evicted from the club and probably in jail. And he likely had no legal recourse for Maxwell's disregard of their verbal agreement either. They'd had no witnesses present when they made the deal. The litigation would be long and expensive, one man's word against another's. And frankly, at this point, he wasn't convinced that Maxwell would even pay him the money he was owed. Maxwell's word meant nothing. Cyrus wouldn't take the loss and just ignore this disrespect, though. He would have to take care of it another way.
I do want my money back with interest, he said,
buttoning his suit jacket again.
And don't ever ask me to borrow another dime in your whole goddamn life. You hear me?
Understood, Maxwell said, nodding and already looking disinterested. Cyrus turned and walked toward the office door.
Enjoy the rest of your night,
Maxwell called to him, almost mockingly.
Tell the bartender I said all your drinks are on the house.
Cyrus didn't respond. Instead, he walked into the hall, slamming the door behind him. 5 minutes later, Cyrus found Tariq standing at the bar, chatting up a young lady in a short black skirt and a bedazzled sequins top.
Tariq,
Cyrus shouted, cupping his hands around his mouth so he could be heard over the cacophony of voices and blaring music. Tariq whispered something to the young lady before strolling to Cyrus's side.
What's up? He asked. You finished your business? You signed the papers?
Cyrus had taken Tariq under his wing a couple of years ago. showing him the ropes around financial consultancy. He was more than a decade younger than Cyrus, but when they'd met, Tariq had seemed confident, capable, and wiser than his years. Considering that he didn't even have a high school diploma, Tariq was a surprisingly quick study. He was good with numbers, too. But he was also good at a few other things you couldn't learn in school. He had a skill set that Cyrus hadn't employed so far, but he would tonight.
No, we didn't sign the damn papers, Cyrus replied tersely. Maxwell said he isn't going to make me co-owner.
Tariq rolled his eyes. Man, didn't I tell you he was full of shit? Didn't I tell you? He didn't even sound like,
I don't need any I told you so's, Tariq.
Cyrus reached into one of his suit jacket pockets.
I need a solution. I need you to take care of it.
Tariq frowned. What am I supposed to do? Cyrus hesitated for only a second or two before pulling out one of his business cards and a gilded pen, the very pen he brought tonight to sign the contract. But he'd still put the pen to good use. If he couldn't sign an agreement to make him and Maxwell business partners, he'd use the pen to sign Maxwell's death sentence. Cyrus wasn't a gangbanger like Maxwell said, but that didn't mean he would let a slight like this go unpunished. If Cyrus had learned anything from dealing with clients in the underworld, it was that you had to maintain your rep. You couldn't let people think that you were a pushover, a punk, a sucker, or they would always take advantage of you, and Cyrus Grey would not be taken advantage of.
Here's his address,
Cyrus said, lowering his voice and scribbling on the back of the card.
He doesn't get home until 5 a.m. most of the time, and he lives alone.
Okay. And? Tariq stared down at the card. What are you telling me that for? Why are you giving this to me?
Why do you think I'm giving it to you?
What? You want me to beat his ass? Cyrus slowly shook his head.
It's past that point.
Tariq squinted. Wait. You want me to R.I.P. this nigga? Cyrus nodded, making Tariq suck his teeth. Cy, come on. I know you pissed, man, but no, I don't do that shit anymore. I could have just stayed with my crew if that was the case. I came to you for something different. You told me that you could hook me up, put me on some new shit, not the same old, same old. Cyrus took a step closer to him.
You like that expensive motorcycle jacket you're wearing? You like your ride?
Tariq bit down on his bottom lip. He was annoyed, but he had no right to be, in Cyrus's opinion. Cyrus was simply asking Tariq to do what he was hired to do.
Well, you have those things because of me, Tariq, he continued,
pointing at his chest.
One hand washes the other. That's what we agreed to in the beginning. Remember? Maxwell may not understand a gentleman's agreement, but we do. And both of us have to live up to it. Maxwell wouldn't be the first dude you've handled. Don't act brand new on me. Just do it. You do this. You stick with me, and we'll go places. We'll go farther than you ever imagined. I can promise you that. Sky's the limit, Tariq.
Tariq glowered at him a beat longer before snatching the card out of his hand.
Fine,
he mumbled before loudly exhaling and walking away.
Tariq,
Cyrus called out, making the younger man pause and turn back around to face him.
And don't make it quick. I want him to feel it.
Tariq nodded, then continued across the club. Cyrus watched until he reached the exit. Then he turned his back around and glanced at the bar. Might as well have a drink, he thought. After all, Maxwell said it was all on the house. Hopefully, he'd at least keep that promise. It was at the bare minimum of what the club owner could do after aggravating Cyrus and wasting his damn time. Cyrus saw an open spot at the marble counter. He saddled up to the bar, raising his hand to get the bartender's attention. But he stopped short when he saw a woman standing on the other side of the bar, about 12 feet away, who made him do a double take. Damn, she's beautiful, he thought. She was petite, tan, with a cute button nose and long hair that she was now tossing over her shoulder. She wore a skin-tight, low-cut wrap dress that showed all her luscious curves. This was a woman who attracted attention like a spotlight was following her around the room. She currently seemed to be getting unwanted attention from a dark-skinned brother who was trying his damnedest to chat her up, but she didn't look remotely interested in him. The mystery woman raised her glass to her ruby-red lips and locked eyes with Cyrus across the bar. He winked at her. She lowered her glass and smiled before giving him a saucy wink back. In less than a minute, Cyrus made his way to her side of the bar. "Hey, baby," he said, making her and the man she was standing with whip around to face him. "Sorry that call took longer than I thought it would. I'm back now." "Oh, that's okay," she replied, quickly catching on to Cyrus's farce. "I had Tony here to keep me company and buy me a drink, but I told him I came here with my man and he'd be back soon." "Thanks for getting her a drink, brother," Cyrus said, thumping a now disgruntled Tony on the shoulder. "I got it handled from here, though." Tony nodded awkwardly and walked off. Cyrus leaned his elbow on the counter as he towered over her. She was an itty-bitty thing. "I'd buy you a drink, but it sounds like he already took care of that." "He did." She let her eyes slowly travel over Cyrus. He noticed that her gaze lingered on his Rolex and his Gucci tie clip before resting on his face. "But maybe you'll make better company." "I can certainly try." He extended his hand. "I'm Cyrus, by the way." "Vanessa," she said before shaking it and licking her lips. Cyrus smiled. So he wouldn't get half of the club like he wanted. But based on the way this beautiful creature was looking at him like he was a prime rib with a side of mashed potatoes, he suspected he might get something else good tonight. And he was right. 2 hours later, he and Vanessa left the club together. He took Vanessa to his sky-rise condo on Massachusetts Avenue, and she did her very damnedest to take care of him in his bedroom, giving Cyrus a night he would never forget. On the other side of town, Tariq simultaneously took care of Maxwell, making sure the club owner wouldn't live to see another dawn. All in all, it was a good night, one that Cyrus would remember for a long time because it showed how he never let things get him down, because no matter what, he knew he could not, would not lose. No matter what it took, he'd always find a way to come out on top. Chapter 1. Vanessa. Present day, Crofton, Maryland. "Nessa! Nessa!" Cyrus yelled from upstairs. His voice ricocheted like a sonic boom from their bedroom door, down the hall, and then down the stairs to Vanessa Grey as she stood at the kitchen counter, assembling his lunch. A club sandwich with tomato bisque and chips on a serving tray. Her husband of 12 years may still be mostly bedridden from the gunshot wounds he suffered almost 2 months before, but nothing seemed to be hampering his mouth. He was as loud and demanding as ever. "What?" she shouted back irritably over her shoulder as she poured pomegranate juice into a glass. "What the hell is taking you so long, woman? I'm starving." She sucked her teeth. "Well, you can starve to death for all I care, you son of a bitch," she muttered before slamming the glass onto the wooden tray, making juice slosh over the side. Vanessa had been catering to Cyrus since he'd arrived home from the hospital, feeding him, washing him, clothing him, disinfecting his wounds, and changing the bandages. And she hated every minute of it. It was bad enough that he had cheated on her for years, even marrying 2 other women behind her back while he was still married to her. It was bad enough that he was now blackmailing her to stay in their joke of a marriage by holding evidence of her affair with her eldest son's soccer coach over her head. He'd threatened to email that photographic evidence to everyone from the other soccer moms to their children's stuffy school principal. But now Cyrus was making Vanessa cater to him like some handmaiden and nurse all rolled into one. It was a slow torture she endured daily. She still couldn't believe how her life had gotten to this point. She'd gone from worry that her affair would end her marriage to fury at hearing about her husband's other wives, and now wanting nothing more than to be rid of Cyrus, all in a matter of months. Vanessa was willing to do just about anything to end this living nightmare, including killing her husband, something she'd never thought would have entered her mind a year ago, let alone a decade before that, when she made it her mission to seduce and ensnare the handsome, wealthy Cyrus Grey. Vanessa now opened one of the kitchen drawers to retrieve a spoon. As she did, her eyes landed on a bottle of Clorox spray she'd left sitting on the counter yesterday after she scrubbed down the kitchen. Her eyes then shifted back to Cyrus's glass of pomegranate juice. Maybe she could pour a little into his drink. Not too much so he would taste it, but just enough to kill him. If he died, this whole ordeal would be over. No more Nurse Vanessa. No more pain in the ass Cyrus. She reached for the bottle. "Nessa, did you hear me?" Cyrus shouted again, making her jump in alarm and snatch back her hand. "Where the hell is my food?" Vanessa grumbled. Instead of grabbing the bottle of cleaning fluid, she grabbed a spoon and slammed the kitchen drawer shut. She wouldn't poison her husband. Not today, anyway. It was too risky. A coroner might find traces of the bleach in his system. She'd still have to stick to the plan and let her lover, Bilal, kill him for her. She just hoped Bilal did it soon. Though she had to admit Cyrus being laid up in his bed at home most of the time didn't make carrying out their murder plot any easier. "I'm coming, damn it! Stop yelling!" she shouted back before grabbing the tray and trudging out of the kitchen and ladder up the stairs to their bedroom. Vanessa eased the bedroom door open with her shoulder and found Cyrus sitting up in the center of their California king in maroon silk pajamas. Though the bed was easily big enough for 2, Vanessa hadn't slept in here with her husband since he'd arrived home. Instead, she slept in one of the guest rooms 2 doors down the hall. She told their 3 children she made the move to the other room because she wanted to give their father space to spread out and get comfortable. Anything to expedite his full, healthy recovery from the shooting. But the truth was, the less time she had to stay in the same room with Cyrus, the better. And she suspected Cy knew the truth and hadn't asked her to stay in here with him for that reason. Besides, if they slept in the same bed, she couldn't vouch that she wouldn't try to strangle or smother the bastard in his sleep. "Lunch is served," she now announced dryly as she carried the tray to his bed.
"Took you long enough,"
he muttered. She set the tray on his lap. "Even if I didn't come up at all, you would have been fine. You could skip a meal or two, honey." She poked at his growing paunch through his shirt, making him swat her hand away. Cyrus had never been a man with sculpted muscles, but he'd always been solidly built. Her own John Henry, with the bald head, big arms, and tree-trunk thighs like the folk hero. That is, until recently. Cy had gone from frail when he first returned from the hospital to now almost doughy after being in bed and stuffing his face for so long. He even worked from his bed now, grazing on snacks as he typed emails and made business calls. Vanessa glanced at the open bag of nacho chips, chocolate chip cookies, and trail mix that sat on his night table. If she didn't kill him, all the food he was eating certainly would.
"Don't worry about me. I'll be up and around sooner or later and get back to my old fighting weight,"
he assured her before taking a bite from his sandwich. She turned away. "Let's hope it's sooner rather than later." She tossed over her shoulder with a withering glance as she strolled out of the bedroom. A half-hour later, Vanessa was finishing up her own lunch when her doorbell rang. She rose to her feet and walked out of the kitchen through the living room and into her foyer. When she swung the front door open, she saw her mother, Carol, standing on the welcome mat in a tank top, capris, and kitten-heeled sandals. "Hey, Mama," she said tiredly.
"Hey.
"How's the patient?" her mother asked as she cocked a finely arched eyebrow over her sunglasses. "Still alive, I assume." "Unfortunately," Vanessa whispered before cutting her eyes at the stairs. "Let's go outside to the deck and talk." Her mother nodded as she stepped inside and shut the front door behind her.
"You don't look too good, sweetheart,"
her mother said as she trailed behind her across the house. They winded their way through the spacious living room and sunroom. "Oh, thanks," Vanessa replied sarcastically.
"I mean it, baby. Are you getting a good night's rest? When's the last time you got a facial or at least an exfoliation treatment? You can't neglect yourself, Nessa. You're a woman of 37. You have to maintain what you have, my dear."
As Vanessa neared the French doors leading to the rear of her home, she caught her reflection in the window panes. Her mother was right. She didn't look like herself. She was wearing a wrinkled, nondescript sheath dress rather than the clingy designer dresses and outfits she usually wore that showed off her petite, curvy figure. Her glossy, dark curls were haphazardly pulled into a bun at her nape because she hadn't been in the mood to style her hair in days. There were bigger bags than Birkins under her eyes. And worst of all, she was starting to look pale, especially next to her mother, whose soft brown skin had taken on the warm radiance it always did at this time of the year. Vanessa hated it when her own skin lost its healthy golden glow. She had Cyrus to blame for all of this. "I've just been down lately," she mumbled to her mother. She swung open one of the doors and stepped onto the 2-story deck. Her mother closed the French doors behind them. Both women headed to one of the patio tables, squinting at the blinding afternoon sun that now hovered in a cloud.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?